Real quick sound check. JP, can you hear me?
We're looking good.
Great. And Jason, if you don't mind, do a sound check real quick for me.
Check. 1, 2. You got me?
Gotcha. Awesome. All right, everybody, welcome. We're going to get started here in about 4-ish minutes. We're at the top of the hour at 3 p.m. So hold on tight. Share the link if you want. We're also broadcasting on YouTube as well, too, so you can find us there. Looking forward to it. Hey everybody, heads up, this is Steven here with Shoflo, and we are going to get going in just a few minutes, so we welcome you. Got over 50 people already. We're expecting almost north of 150 today, so excited about that. So welcome. If you can't hear us or if you can't see us, the screen share, go ahead and drop that note in the channel and we'll start working on that with you one-on-one, but we'll get going here in about 3-ish minutes. Hey everybody, again, Steven here with Shoflo, and this is awesome. We got over 75-ish participants that keep kind of flowing in, so we're gonna get going here right at the top of the hour in just about a minute and a half-ish, but we welcome everybody, and we'll get going here in just a little bit. All right, everybody, we got, this is awesome. We're already up and over 100 participants. So welcome, everybody. And we're going to keep going here in just a second. Let me dial it down. And Jason, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, we'll keep going.
Got it.
Awesome. All right, well, welcome. This is awesome. We've got over, let's see, what's the current number? We're at something in the 100-ish. 108 people joining us today, 211. or maybe even more. I think it's like 225, something like that, have scheduled and registered for today. So we're super pumped. This is a Shoflo customer spotlight. And today we've got Mr. Jason Suitt, Assistant AD, Fan Engagement at LSU Tigers. Jason, welcome to the Shoflo Customer Spotlight.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here. Hope everybody is doing well in this crazy times out there. So,
absolutely. Yeah, I want to get to that in a second. So real quick, just a little bit about our guest here today. So Jason's the man. We've enjoyed getting to know him over the last few years. So he's actually been at LSU for 7 years, I think. Is that right?
correct. Yes.
Yeah. So 7 years there, in fan engagement and all that. Then another 14 years at the University of Arkansas, just kind of in marketing and license. So really, we're coming in like 21-ish plus years in this industry. So the guy knows what he's talking about. He's seen it all. He's seen paper. He's seen LED boards. He's seen scoreboards. He's seen the whole game. And so we're really just kind of thankful and excited to have you here. So welcome, Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just taking a minute up front and just kind of like talking about the reality of what's going on out there. Coronavirus has just kind of crashed into all parts of our world, both personally, like right outside my house. Me and my wife are kind of going on walks with our strollers 3 or 4 times a day just to kind of give ourselves something to do. But in this industry, like hands down, it's just crashed into us. And so whether you're sports or your broadcast, esports, or event agency, there's really just been no part of this industry that it really hasn't gotten to. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And our hope at Shoflo, and then I was talking even earlier with Jason, we kind of just get it. There's a lot of people sitting around who want to be doing something, but there's not necessarily an event to go work on or a production to go prepare for. And that sucks. And we just want to be an available thing to help you, fill the time and use it in a way to where you get to learn and observe and see how somebody else does. So that's all today is. It's an opportunity for us to kind of just highlight Jason and LSU and just kind of have him walk you through how he does it and how he goes through and prepares with his team and prepares for game days every single week across all the different sports there at LSU. And so that's what we're here to do today. And I hope it's something that's helpful. And of course, we'll post the webinar afterwards and all that stuff. Also, real quick before we jump in it too far, we have on here as well too. We have JP Chat, and so he is an organizer, moderator in the chat. So if you have any questions or if you have anything you want to share, or get to me or get to Jason in terms of questions or comments, we want this to be as much as possible a conversation. It's a webinar, but we want it to be a conversation. So use the chat, ask questions, and that stuff is funneling straight to me and to Jason. So cool. Well, hey Jason, just kind of like, let's just start with the big old elephant in the room. What's this journey like been for you guys over there at LSU? I bet you, just like everybody 2 or 3 weeks ago, you were probably just prepping for a game, so how has this kind of like crashed in with you guys?
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to, make sure everybody watching here is healthy and safe and, staying safe, or families are doing well and all that. But yeah, it's definitely been crazy here in this region, this area. Louisiana has been hit pretty hard, to be honest with you. It started coming up. We were at a baseball game. I think we were playing South Alabama 3 Wednesdays ago. And I remember that game, we got asked to run some graphics and do some messaging that came kind of from the governor's office and all that. And then kind of, during that game, I think actually that day is when we had the first confirmed case in the state. And then you kind of snowballed from there. You started hearing all of the chatter about all the basketball tournaments getting canceled. And I think that was the night, that was the evening that the Ivy League, canceled all of their sports and everything.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the first domino to hit.
Yeah.
And then the NBA, I think actually that night too,
NBA.
did the one where they pulled all the players off of off of the court, and the medical staff came running out. So so kind of when all that started hitting, we were in the middle of a baseball game, and kind of all of our focus turned kind of to the TV that's in the PA booth there. And, we were still doing our job, but kind of keeping an eye on this just because it, like I said, it just kind of snowballed from there. And then kind of the next day is kind of when it really started to hit. I think our baseball team, we were supposed to go to Ole Miss for our SEC opener that weekend. And they were at the stadium, putting all their gear on the bus and getting on the bus. And coach got a, phone call to, basically take everybody off the bus. And that was kind of the start of it. And then, the next day, I was a Thursday. And then, next day on Friday, we kind of started hearing a little bit about, working from home and, so forth and all that. So I kind of started, gathering, I guess, everything I could in my office, to take home. And then kind of went through the weekend. And then on that, following Monday is when we kind of got the, mandated, kind of work from home type of deal. So I actually ran to the office, grabbed a few more hard drives and a few more other things so I could have here at the, I guess at my house to work on some stuff. And then been there ever since. So it's
where are you right now?
crazy.
You're in like your back house or something like that, or your guest house?
Yeah, I'm back in my guest house right now. Kind of my two daughters are inside, and then my wife, this actually served as my wife's office. She works from home all the time anyway. So I've kind of,
she's a pro at this.
Yeah, exactly. I've kind of kicked her out of her desk right now so I could, kind of get back here for some peace and quiet for about an hour or so.
Yeah. Well, man, it kind of just crashed into everybody, like we talked about. I was Shoflo. I remember literally we were doing whatever business as normal. And then we heard something about like San Francisco was one of the first ones to kind of start signaling maybe less than 100 people together. And then Golden State, maybe Warriors or whoever it was, said they were going to play with no fans. And I just was like, this is going to be a bummer for our customers and these teams. And like that Wednesday was like just domino effect. It was NBA canceled or suspended, I guess. And then I think March Madness, all that jazz. And it just kind of kept going and going. So anyways, I know for you guys, Louisiana too, right now is getting a lot of attention. So, thinking about you guys well, so you're in it, you're here, I guess talk to me about kind of like your journey. You've been doing LSU for 7 years, 14 years over at University of Arkansas. You kind of shared me a couple photos, but just kind of like talk to me. How did you even fall into this industry? Was that something that was like straight out of college, or how did you even get into this industry?
Yeah. So, I guess obviously to back up even further, I've always been involved in sports since I can remember. Played baseball, soccer, basketball, all the, youth sports growing up. Kind of just always, that's just always been my thing. And then kind of going through high school and into college, I tried to play baseball. I went to a Division II school to play baseball, quickly realized baseball is not going to pay any bills for me down the road. So kind of, finished out there, got all my core stuff, and then transferred to South Carolina, University of South Carolina, into their sports administration program. That's kind of like where I figured how I wanted to get into business, where I kind of really got the passion for it.
Cool.
I did a couple of internships during school at the Citadel down in Charleston, South Carolina, sports information and marketing offices. And then I was lucky enough when I finished school to get an internship at Arkansas in the office there. So I did the internship, was fortunate enough that they offered me a full-time position out of there, out of the internship, which was a newly created position just for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It ended up spending 14 years there. It was one of my, dreams when I got into this to work there. For those people that know me, My whole family is from Arkansas, both my mom and my dad. So I've grown up an Arkansas fan and all that, even when I was young. So to be able to spend 14 years there and work there was awesome. It was a dream come true. One of the places that I really enjoyed. And then while I was there, I kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything. You can see some pictures there from when College Game Day came, and I guess down on the sidelines. We were the marketing office, we were the sales office, we were the licensing office for the whole university, we were the game management office. We ran the baseball radio network out of our office. So I got my hands on a lot of different stuff while I was there. And then fortunately had the opportunity to come down to LSU in May of 2013 and just made the jump and haven't looked back since. I would like to call out there on the right there on that one picture.
Oh yeah, let me get back to that.
Yeah. There in the middle is Brooke Robinson, which hopefully she's on here. She said she was going to be. So hi, Brooke, if you're on there. And then to her on the other side is Kyle Huber. I don't know if he's there. She just made a message in the chat. I don't know if Kyle's on here, but Kyle's now down with the Pelicans down in New Orleans. So
love it, man. You've probably bumped over 21 years. You've probably bumped into most people at all, whether it's at NACTA drinking beers or
exactly
in the control booth. But,
yeah.
Well, hey, you've got your story's awesome, and you've got just clearly been doing this for years and years. You've got this one story before we jump into the software.
Yeah, sure.
Talk about that. But you got this one story you mentioned to me earlier, so I wanted to I don't even know what it is yet, but I'll cue it up and let you kind of share the story from here.
Yeah, so it's always good, a little lighthearted picture here for everybody. This was me in 2014, actually, ironically, at the LSU game, Arkansas LSU game in Little Rock, and I had the dubious distinction of tackling a topless streaker, as you can see here.
Did you just happen to be on the field? Like, was that just kind of?
Yeah, it was. So actually, like LSU was beating us pretty handily that game, and I was in the end zone, and just somebody pointed out. I was talking to somebody. They were facing the other way. They pointed her out coming down the aisle, and then I turned around. She had dropped her jacket, was climbing over the railing. That picture was literally in the end zone of that of that side of the stadium. So some people saw her, not the whole stadium saw her, but I kind of I guess gave her a couple of big good shoves off to the sideline, and she just kind of tumbled, and they security and all that took her from there. So it's always a fun story to tell. And
that's funny, dude.
And
you wouldn't think that was a part of your day job or your job description, but apparently it is.
No, like in this job, as many people probably know on here, there's something new every day that comes up. And even now, 20 years into the business, there's still things that come up every day that are completely different and challenging and all that. And that's kind of the fun part of it and the thing I enjoy. So
cool, man. Well, okay. Well, let's jump into it. A lot of people are here to, kind of learn from you and your workflows. And so really, we're going to break the next 25-ish minutes into, a mixture of like philosophy and then practically how does he do stuff inside of Shoflo. And then there are good questions coming. I've already got one here from Thomas that is around content coordination. So I see that, and I'll come to that here in a minute when we get there. But let's start by starting kind of high level, specifically at LSU. What is y'all's philosophy, right? So in just kind of a couple minutes or less, you guys are approaching game presentation from or do you kind of have a philosophy there? Let's just start with that. Do you guys kind of have a philosophy on how you approach game pres in and out of each of the sports?
Yeah, pretty much everything we do has to have a benefit to some kind of benefit to the fan that is there, but we don't run just straight up 30-second commercial spots, for, let's say a Ford commercial spot or whatever. We don't do any of those. anything that we do that is sponsored. There are PA messages and all and things like that, obviously, but features and promos we do. There's all some kind of, I guess, interaction or some kind of with highlights or something like that. I guess later on as we go through a script, you'll kind of see some of those. We do. I try to treat our games and pretty much any of our venues just like a TV broadcast. That's essentially what it is. It's a TV broadcast to I guess in our case in football up to 100 200 3,000 people inside the stadium. That goes on to what we do on the screens. We tend to try to stay away from covering live video as much as we can, with some of our graphics and crowd prompts and things like that. It's a lot of like overlays on top of video that there's still live video coming through. To how I treat our PA guy. I essentially have PA cards, just like a stage manager would in a TV broadcast. When we call for those PAs, we hand it to him, he reads them, goes right back, and then we just move through like that way. So, so that's kind of how I try to approach it. We have some very great content creators, so obviously we try to utilize them as much as we can in our in-game stuff. So like a lot of the stuff that comes out on our social media channels prior to a game, we'll try to repurpose those throughout the game too in different situations that make sense. So it's kind of a little different angles, I guess like every week, every game is something different, depending on what's going on, so forth and so on. So that's kind of, I guess, kind of a broad view of how we look at,
Well, that's helpful because I think that when your teams are building out game scripts, they're building out in Shoflo or Excel, doesn't really matter. There's generally a philosophy of like why is this element here? What's our goal with this element and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's always, I just like to start with that typically if I can.
Sure.
Well, jumping into Shoflo, how many years have you guys been with us now? How many years have you been in Shoflo?
Well, with Shoflo, when we made the change, I think it's been 4 or 5 years now, if I remember correctly. So
nice. So you figured out how to ride the bike for the most part.
Yes,
and you're comfortable with it. What was the big thing? Why did you switch in? What was your kind of like compelling thing that made you switch over to Shoflo?
For me, the biggest thing is one, I guess, organization. It's really easy to kind of organize and keep track of everything. It's a really good place to kind of keep everything in one spot, instead of having it on, all your different hard drives and all this, so forth and so on. It's kind of the same thing, but it's all kind of here and it doesn't take up necessarily spots on your hard drive, unless you want it to, if you want to save scripts back to it. But, and then the biggest thing to me, I think, is just the efficiency of using the software. For baseball, for example, I can do a weekend series and pretty much have a whole weekend done in 45 minutes, 45 minutes, and have, the whole weekend pretty much planned out, where all I got to do is go in, prior to those games and kind of tweak a couple of things if I'm still waiting on, say it's a first.
How long would that have taken before, you think?
Easily probably a couple hours, when you're dealing with copying and pasting, either if you're doing it in Excel or Word, I guess if you're like me, I hate using Excel. I'm not a big Excel guy. So I always either grab the wrong cell and it all gets out of whack, or, all the calculations get out of whack and all that. So this just kind of, automates it, and is much more efficient in doing it. And, I can get to a point like that I'm good with it and then walk away from it if I'm waiting for stuff, and then jump right back into it. And know exactly where I need to go and those kind of things. So
cool. Well, let's jump into it. So you kind of prepped up, but just in general, I'll kind of give an overview of what we're looking at here. So this is Shoflo, and so this is your team account, which is LSU, and so you guys are using different events. So that's an important one. Just kind of a fun workflow acknowledgement, real quick. There is if you're collegiate, typically, you're probably using the software across more than one sport. And so the idea here is that you can actually create, call them events. That's because Shoflo gets used in a wide range of different use cases, but the event actually becomes the container for the sport. And so you can see we got football, basketball, baseball, gymnastics, softball. So the pros, I think of that, Jason, to just kind of like hear you out on that is what? You like them all existing in one event because you can see the whole season, or like what's kind of the pros for you when you think about building it out this way?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like again, it's kind of, I guess, organization. It's easy to jump in and out of things. There's sometimes that once we get into crossover seasons, for instance, we have a sponsored element that is student athlete of the week, right? Now that student athlete of the week, it's quite literally the student athlete of the week. So any sports that we have over that week, and if that element's supposed to run in that sport, it goes across that. So if it was in basketball, was say on a Tuesday night, I can go in and grab the PA from basketball on that Tuesday night that's already been updated and literally just copy it over for my Wednesday baseball game or my Friday, Saturday, Sunday baseball series.
So let's hit that right,
So
right
it's
there
easy
because
to
I think
kind of jump back and forth from
yeah,
these.
yeah, yeah. No, let's hit that. I think that's good. So, okay, for people who are new or whatever at Showflow, basically when you jump into Showflow, you've got events, we've got the football season, and each one of these represent a game script. So if you were to click into that, this is going to load up kind of that classic game log or that grid, whatever that might be, whatever you guys call that. That's what we're loaded up here. So obviously we're not going to use this as an onboarding call for everybody, but I just wanted to real quick, high level. This is a game script in Showflow, and so this is specifically game one versus Georgia Southern. So then right there, what Jason was talking about is the idea of what we call global elements. So these elements right here are local to this show, um, or you might think about an element as like a local element to the show or to that script. But with Showflow, if you choose to use the global elements workflow, which not everybody does, but I think there's benefits specifically to sports for it. If you were to use the global elements manager, what that lets you do is it actually lets you create elements really above any one game or one script. You create them at the element manager level. And then from there, you're literally just dragging and dropping them in. The benefits to that, I'll show you real quick, would be if you go to the element manager. What's a good one, Jason, you think that's across multiple scripts that we could maybe pull up?
I mean, probably Acadians across multiple. I actually, if you go down our
Well,
team
there you go. That's a
LSU,
great
yeah,
example, actually, if you wanted to. Arcadia right there.
yeah. So see how many people how that goes across everything, and then
Yeah, and so that's kind of what Jason was referencing there before is that element is actually present in every one of these games, these game scripts. And so any change that Jason makes here can actually, when he makes that, he can choose to basically publish that change to all of these active scripts, or you can be selective with that. So a question on that end, Jason, like how are you using that? Is that like during the week you kind of are, you like the change to an element or to a PA read, and then you just kind of publish from there, or what's kind of the standard work?
correct. Yeah, I mean, I've personally have used that a lot. That I'll build a script for the weekend. Let's say a football game. I'll start building a script on Monday or Tuesday afternoon, and then maybe Thursday or Friday, we get a late request that, hey, the sponsor wants to change their script, or this needs to be dropped in if it's a presentation, or so forth and so on. Well, sponsored probably makes more sense in this example. So like I can go in and change that copy of that sponsor,
Yeah.
and then save that globally back to my template that I use. So then when I go to build the next show, it's already updated and, copied over into that. That's kind of how I use that function a lot.
Yep.
And kind of the same thing in, baseball. I might go ahead and do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday script on Monday or Tuesday and have them there. And then that, like, student athlete of the week, once we get that set, I can go in on my Friday script, change that student athlete of the week, and then go back and globally save that to the Saturday and Sunday as well.
Yep.
So kind of spread it over, over all of those events or games. So
I love that, man. And so, yeah, just to kind of demonstrate that, I think we created one under football called the webinar one. So what we can do is I'm actually going to drop this element, this little test global element that I created. I'm just going to drop it right in there. I'm going to go to that show. And so that right there is just a really good example of, like, we dropped an element in. And so then you could do that multiple times, right? So if I was to drop this element in, like, I don't know, call it 3 or 4 more times just to kind of make the case. I'll do one right here too. So that same test global element is now present in 3 different places. So if you wanted to, you could actually change some attribute of this element. So let's just say that we changed it to be a red background. And from here, if you said you wanted to, you could actually publish that change everywhere. We're going to come up and we're going to say, where is it located? Okay, it's in the global element manager, or it's in the webinar template, which is the one that's right here. And then if you hit publish changes, we'll actually see that apply right here on the fly. And you can kind of see, boom, it made those changes. So that's just a great example of kind of the global elements. And Jason, I just jumped in there because it's a complex piece of workflow. Sure. And I thought it would be helpful to demonstrate it. But that's a really small sample of the concept of running throughout your season and making changes and being able to apply those changes or publish them to active scripts while you're building them throughout the season. Cool. I love that you guys are using that, and a lot of teams do. What does that look like preseason? Are you just basically going in and building in global element manager, or what does that look like for you guys before season starts?
Yeah, so I'm building the templates, kind of what I work off of. I'll normally go in and like essentially like color code everything, red that hasn't been updated, and then once I get those updates, take it off of the red, so I know that it's been updated, and then save it, save it over to the global manager and back to the template. So that way, when we copy our shows, it's all updated from there. And then typically those do change every now and again. Obviously, a late minute request from sponsors. In terms of some of our crossover sports, like our baseball radio show, actually doesn't start until March because of the basketball shows going on. Yep. So I have, so I kind of note that, and then when March comes around, that date where they're going to start, then I'll do the global manager, update the, take out the day that it's going to start, and then kind of resave. So we kind of have a fresh look from there. So.
Got it. All right. So, hey, let me ask you this. So I think this be helpful for people. So y'all LSU's workflow is they actually create a template, like a game script, and it's a template, and then you're duplicating the template for each game, or Correct. Are you duplicating the last game for each new game?
I'm duplicating the template.
Okay, cool. So by that, he just means he's literally going to LSU football here and going down to the template.
Yep.
And hitting duplicate, and then renaming it, probably whatever you want to rename it.
Exactly. And the reason why I kind of do that is on my template, I put kind of a lot of things in there. Probably I try to build it with any and all elements, if you will, that might show up in the show. Yeah. And then when I copy it and go to that next game, I essentially will take out what I don't need.
Gotcha.
and delete it out. So it's all kind of placeholders, if you will.
Yep.
Like this element that you have highlighted there. That's one of the elements that on a week by week basis, I work with our like creative teams and find out what videos they've already had built for like social media purposes that we could repurpose back into our show.
Got it.
And they'll normally send me on Wednesday or Thursday. Okay, here are the videos ready. You know, the length of the videos and so forth and so on. So I kind of keep that as a placeholder within the template. And then when I start the new game, I'll go in and rename that to whatever the name of the file is, and then update the timing and so forth. So I could kind of go from there. So.
Well, that's good. I'd love to hit that for a second. So yeah, so you guys are using a template, and then I love this. You know, there's going to be a video, you just don't know the name.
Correct.
Some people do XXX. I've seen other people do underscore.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to approach it. I'll take it back to XXX for you, or even better, I'll show you if you were to do this. You can actually use what we call our cell edit history. It's right here in the corner of the right corner, and you can click that and we'll actually show you the history so you can kind of take it whichever direction you want there. But so to that point, I'll take it back to XXX. When you're doing that, when are you making the changes? So if I was to go to an actual live game or one that you did, like game 1, and I was go down to element 22, somewhere in game 1, we would probably anticipate that we'd see that video, but with an there it is.
Maybe not. Well, yeah, in that video, it would have been the locker room reveal video. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it just, you know, varies game by game. Some games there might not be anything there, and I might, you know, move something from somewhere else up into that slot or kind of shuffle some things around.
It's good. It's good.
But it's just it's kind of worked well for me. And then the other thing I'd like to touch on too, on the template where I have those spaces, it doesn't come across on this, but on my personal template, on my login, I put the color code feature, and I have a red line similar to what you see here over the top. And I put that on any element that has something within it that needs to change. If it's PA copy, if it's a name, if it's, you know, I guess anything that has potentially anything that might need to change. If I, you know, need to delete it out. For instance, we have on here I think it's back in the 4th quarter. It's one of our sponsor reads. They sent 2 reads in odd number games. They wanted to do 1 read. It's the lottery if you find it, if you want to do the search or whatever. But
I'm going to use the old option down to just jump from title row to title row, which is a nice new feature.
Yeah. So like when you get all the way down there, you should see the lottery. Yep. You'll see the lottery. So in games 1, 3, 5, and 7, they wanted this particular copy, and in games 2, 4, and 6, they wanted this copy. So I keep both of those in my template, and then just delete out whichever one I don't need.
I love it. So yeah, and we've talked with a lot of teams on that. So that's 2 different approaches you can think of when working on games. I like to, whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but I'm gonna say it. So there's basically like the skeleton approach where you're more so building out title rows. And then you're dragging and dropping in elements from Global Element Manager, and just so you're adding the flesh in on a game by game basis. Or there's Jason's approach, which is start with a fully almost like overstuffed game script, and then whittle it away to what you actually need. Honestly, it's just a matter of how much does it change on a game to game basis. If you've got a game, if every new game is like completely new from scratch, you might be better off with the skeleton approach where you have just title rows and then you're loading it up with global elements. But it sounds like for Jason and your team, it's less about the order being significantly different. It's just about changes to the names of the elements or different attributes of the elements.
And kind of on that same note, you know, this is how I've set it up for my purposes in football. And one of the great things about Shoflo that I do like is that each one of the people on our staff that touch this software and on their particular sports, they can set it up how they like to see it. So if you like went into men's basketball, it's probably going to look a lot different than this, because Heidi on our staff who does men's basketball, she's set it up the way that she kind of prefers it to see it. So so it's very customizable, and basically however you feel comfortable in doing it. She actually uses a different approach. If you click those, I think you're going to get timing, schedule. Yeah. So like she digs real deep into it, you know, that way. So there's multiple ways that our staff uses it, even sport by sport, you know. So
that's great. Yeah, I'm glad we jumped over here. So yeah, I mean, obviously in collegiate specifically, you've got different, not always the same game script sort of producer and builder. And so right here is a great sheet. It looks like she's really thinking about each game and using Shoflo as a delivery mechanism to send out more stuff like PDFs. Again, you can drag and drop anything in there. It could be files, it could be media files, the whole spectrum. But then, like Jason was talking about, you actually do have, she has really kind of named her script and her columns differently. And again, the reason that matters, the flexibility there, is because every venue is a different set of technology, right? So, you know, the football stadium has different sources and different destinations maybe than the baseball, certainly than, you know, tennis or whatever it is. So being able to have your game scripts be adaptive on a per venue, per league, it matters a lot. Jason, I want to hit pause real quick. We've got loads of questions coming in, and I want to make sure that we get a couple of them. So I'm just going to work it back from the bottom up here. So got one from Shandlebar. What other applications would the global elements be useful for, say in a corporate live show example? I'll take that one. So that's a great question. Global elements are, we know a large corporate customer who does obviously just these big old events. And so they're doing a multi-stop tour, I guess, of a corporate show. Basically, it's the same show, but maybe it's in different cities, or it's the same show in the same spot, but different audiences are coming through. So that's a really perfect use case where you would go in, build a global element out for the show, drag and drop it in, and then on a per show basis, you're making a change and just publishing those changes throughout. Other ones I've seen it on is esports for sure, all over it. We've got a lot of friends over at Riot and over at other groups that are using and have tried out Global Element Manager as well there too. The concept there is basically you could actually have people who are changing the edits to the video, like the files. If you're actually live recording ISOs or doing things of that nature, and you're like naming these things as you go, the producer might drag and drop the video file that says this is the replay, post-game replay package or whatever, but that thing's not getting shot and edited until it's like happening live. And so they'll actually be, the editors will be in Global Element Manager, and as they identify what the length is, the duration, the file format, the title, etc., any other attributes that would be helpful, they'll do it in Global Element Manager and then publish it to the various scripts and locations. So a lot of good stuff. Ping JP, we can set up a separate session with you guys, talk about that in more detail. Another one is from Nathan Bromwell. Is there a way to get a copy of the LSU men's basketball script to see what it looks like? Jason, sure. I can show it for sure, but in terms of your comfort level with sharing a copy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, if I'd be more than happy to share any of them, with you from, I guess, any of our game scripts. If you have a pen or pencil handy, my email is just suitt, SUITT @lsu.edu. You can obviously find that on our, website as well within this, staff directory. Shoot me a note and I can, save some of these out as a PDF and, shoot them over to you. I'm more than happy to share it with you.
So here's one that came up too. This one came from Caleb Ramirez. Hey, Jason, do you use Shoflo for corporate sponsorship reporting? If so, how do you use it for reporting?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily use it for reporting per se, but I do. And Stephen, if you want to jump in, we could show that timestamp feature. The Florida game would be fine. I do use the timestamp feature live here for a couple of reasons. But to answer your question, one of the reasons why I do it is if my sports properties client services group ever comes back and says, client X said they didn't hear their PA or they didn't see their promo feature. I can pretty much go back and see, for the most part, if I get times during the flow of the game, if I'm on the headset talking to somebody, I might miss a couple of seconds here or there, or a minute if I'm, in the middle of something, but I can go back and kind of refer back exactly when that ran, and to even drill down even farther. If you go here, like the first quarter, I set up all my timeouts on there that I can log my timeouts. A, that I know how many we have still left and out there. And then B, I can always look back and say, okay, my first quarter timeout, my first media timeout hit at 7:18. And I can go down and see, okay, at that timeout, we did the TAF recognition and the Johnny Robinson Hall of Fame recognition because of the timestamps match up. So then I can go back and say, okay, we ran this promo during the first media timeout in the first quarter, or so forth or so on. So that's kind of how I've used it. We don't get questioned a whole lot on it, but to me it's nice to kind of have that, I guess, in my back pocket if I need to go back and refer back to it. And at the same breath, our client services group with our sports properties have full access to this as well. I've set up accounts for them, so they can also go in and check on their own if they want to.
And real quick too, Jason, on that, I'll just demonstrate it. So what he's talking about is the timestamp. So that's a special little column. It's available for everybody. Show or hide timestamp column. This applies to corporate and to sports and esports, the whole spectrum. There's two different ways to do it. You can either just click this, and it's that simple. You kind of just drop a timestamp in there. Shows you who did it, when they done it, and if you wanted to say a particular message around that, you sure can. What's cool too is you can actually track multiple timestamps. So if I kept clicking this, right, these are all different timestamps. And then if I was to hit the little bottom left corner, that's going to pop open kind of a little timestamp history on a per element basis. And then the final thing is obviously tied to tracking. Up here at the top, there's this little blue broadcast button. So if you click that, which I think is what, Jason, you're doing, right?
Sometimes both ways.
Okay, cool.
I don't really have one particular way I do it. It's just game by game or time by time, to be honest with you. So
yeah, that will basically follow as you track from row to row, and we're just going to auto drop a timestamp in there for you. So that's kind of just a pretty basic function to make it easier, less clicks. So if you're already using show caller tracking during the show, then this would be something you could turn on. Talk about that a little bit, Jason. Do you guys use show caller tracking? Are you the one who's the show caller? And how are you what's your in-game setup look like?
Yeah, so I'm the one that's doing all the calling during football and all that. I obviously have a laptop in front of me where I'm like keeping track, and then usually to my left, or like not to my left, to my right is a screen that I see all of our videos and graphics. So that way, during certain situations, I can point the operator to the right place or the right video or the right graphic, so forth, so on. And then to our left's music and PA and all that. So that's kind of how we're set up. During the game, I tend to jump around quite a bit. Everything that's in our script, it's scripted, but it's not scripted, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So most of it is done based on what happens within the game. Most of the pregame stuff just kind of rolls on through, obviously. There are times when, if say the team's late or something like that, we kind of start jumping around and moving stuff around, and I'm actually moving it on the fly on my keyboard and on my screen so I can reorganize it and all that.
Yeah.
And that helps me with the timestamp feature, I can, during pregame, I can pretty much keep on track of, okay, well, we're ahead of schedule, we're behind schedule. Do I need to cut something? Am I going to have time to fill? Because I normally have like some generalized videos, like highlight videos, kind of that I don't really put on the script, but I have on our system, and I can see them because it's right next to me.
Yeah.
So like if I have something, a big, huge block to fill, I could, say, okay, let's insert this video here if I want to fill, a minute or two or whatever, with just
Nice.
not, music or something like that. So
you'd actually be a good candidate. We'll have to, in a separate webinar, talk through, but we're building some stuff in the over under space where you can kind of say, hey, I thought this was going to go for 5 minutes, this timeout. We're tracking light or we're tracking heavy on it, and it kind of helps indicate for you whether to stretch or, obviously cut and things of that nature. Are you using the item runtime clock here, which kind of takes it to not full screen, but are you sort of tracking during the game, keeping an eye on that clock?
Not really. I've more utilized the timestamp versus what I have in my script as the real time. I kind of compare those two and just kind of eyeball it and kind of figure it out on the fly.
So. Yeah. Hey, real quick, we're going to do a poll, and then we'll keep talking underneath it. But JP, go ahead and fire up the poll. We're just curious about industry. Make sure we can adapt some of the conversation as we're going throughout it. So we'll keep this open for 30 seconds. While we're on that, hey, a big thing I want to talk about with that you guys are doing over there, Jason, is basically export sports, whether it's sports or it's corporate or it's esports or it's internal corporate like meetings. It's super helpful to be real time. It's super helpful to be collaborative and to help you get a good start. But at the end of the day, there's a wide range of people who need these game scripts, and not everybody is basically, down for being on a device. Talk me through that. How do you guys handle that? How many people are kind of like have interest in it? And how many people touch the game script throughout the week? And how many people are really just waiting for you to give them a printout?
So probably during the week, we probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 people that are going through. I kind of utilize the guest pass feature and send those out to like our PA guy, our client services folks, if they just want to, quick reference something. Sometimes our production group does that, and several other folks will jump on it. That way, like our PA guy, he'll usually jump on Wednesday and Thursday nights, and sometimes he'll even text me, hey, saw a typo or something, or hey, let's clean this up or change the wording of this, how he makes it more comfortable. So,
and are you sharing the guest pass with them, or
yes.
who else getting the guest? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so
like I'm sharing the guest pass, and it's pretty much the PDF essentially of the game script of where it is when they bring it up. So
yeah, and a note on that. Basically, the guest pass basically lets you. It's a link to your game script, but it's not real time. But every time they go to the link and hit refresh, they're going to get the latest and greatest. And what's cool about that is you can kind of get rid of some of the junk if you don't, want it to be there. Again, it's really simple. You can text it to people, email it. So this is actually a good one for like sponsorship or corporate to kind of have like a view without having to be a whole logged in user and stuff. So yeah, who's kind of on your delivery list for guest pass, Jason?
It's our PA guy, the band, our spirit squad coordinator, also the client services guys with Sports Properties. Even though they have an account on the back end, if they just want a quick reference, like a script, instead of digging through, they can go to it's less clicks through the guest pass than it is going through, the back end of the software. So,
Yep.
And then sometimes our video production guys will jump on it too throughout the week and kind of see, take a look at it. And then on Fridays, usually Friday mornings, unless there's something comes up with scheduling, is our big production meeting for the game on Saturday. And that's kind of when I kind of go over this. I actually bring this up on a big, huge TV we have in our conference room.
Gotcha.
I print out some short versions of what I call the quick look, and then kind of breeze through it with everybody involved on game day from that standpoint. And then on Saturdays, we actually have a meeting with our internal marketing staff with all of our students and kind of go through the script as well with them, depending on what's going on that game. So
cool. Yeah, it makes sense. I launched a poll there too, just made me think about what we were talking about, performance and all that stuff. So just how many people are responsible or have the need to do performance. So it looks like, I mean, obviously that's not applicable to everybody, but that is a good thing that works as well. And just a real quick note on the performance. You can, for example, if I was to go to your game one, I can export that report and actually like see right here. I can hit export timestamp show report. And so that will actually, basically drop down a little simple CSV that you can kind of quickly preview here and see. So it's a lot of text and you can sift through it, but basically every single one of his elements, we're actually sitting there and we're actually showing, what those timestamps were and if there was any specific note around them as well too. Cool, man. Well, let's see. Do you guys, I've got a question here from Jacob. He's curious, do you still print out scripts for your marketing crew down on the field, or do they have an electronic copy that they use as well too? Yeah, it's perfect, right in line with the export to PDF, but
yeah.
How do you guys do?
We typically use printed out scripts still. I guess obviously if we have access through, mobile application to get to a digital copy. But if you go to the PDF export, I've set up a couple of different looks, if you will, what I call the long and short. Basically, the difference between the two is the PA. So the long version is meant for those folks that are down on the field that might be, I guess, working with presentations or recognitions or anything like that that might involve names, things that might have changes to it, things that we have to get pronunciations, because after all, we are in Louisiana where everything is said not how it's spelled, which is always fun when you're not from here and you don't understand that when you first move here. So,
yeah. What's an example of that one?
Well, I mean, the easy ones go, it's GEAUX instead of GO here. So, but another good one is the name Richard, Richard, is actually Rishad here, not Richard. Yeah, and you have no idea to know that unless you just don't have any idea.
It's my dad's name. I'll have to call him that.
Yeah,
see if he figures it out.
Yeah, so those folks who have been here are probably laughing at me right now on like on their screen. So, but anyway, the difference between the two is the PA and no PA. Like again, the folks on the field that are dealing with presentations, scratching out names, pronunciation, so forth, so on. They basically take the long version, so they have all of that information. And then everybody else that necessarily doesn't need to have that gets the short version, which is, just a quick rundown of everything.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, the PA read by itself mostly is what drives your additional pages and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I've actually considered, one thing during this time of kind of working from home and no events. I mean, I've actually considered of rethinking this a little bit and maybe come up with something different and reorganize it some that might make a little better sense or clear, or still provide some more detailed information. I don't know. I've kind of been going back and forth with it, but
yeah, no,
I guess obviously I got tons of time right now. So
Yeah. That's it. That's what everyone's here for too, is to kind of like audit and consider. Quick notes about PDF, just FYI. Yeah, on this, the idea is you can like choose which columns you want to show up. I'll go to edit mode just to kind of make it a little simpler. You can choose which columns appear, and then essentially you can like choose, letter or your paper size, your row size, your landscape. But then you can save that as a preset, which is huge in terms of being able to kind of quickly generate these PDFs. Also, you can come in and drop like a particular page break. So we can see here under Arcadian Ambulance, I'll drop one right there. So then if you were to go into preview mode, now that it's got that, preview is going to take a second to generate the script, but that will show you with the break. See that break right here now at Arcadian. So that's a helpful little tip for anyone who's using PDF export as well too. Well, hey man, we're coming up to the end. Questions have been awesome. I really appreciate them as they've all been coming in. One that just came in was, does your PA announcer use this live? So what's the answer there?
He does not. Our PA announcer is very old school. So I don't feel quite comfortable putting a monitor in front of him doing this with him. That's just our situation that we're in. Different situations might be different. I'm pretty sure the folks at Mississippi State use this feature, if I'm not mistaken. It really depends on what works best for you. That's kind of the beauty of the system, really. So
yeah.
But
and I'm showing here just so you can kind of see it for anyone who is curious. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's the classic thing. Everyone knows it. The PA readers they're probably more old school in their desires and their interest of like adopting new technology. Although I would say I'm always surprised the ones that do are not the young ones only. There's some really classic old school dudes that are fully got Shoflo up in a featured view. What we find is that basically they usually have a printout and then they've got this. And so it's one of those things where the benefits are that, someone like Jason can come in and quickly just kind of say, a new thing, Richard, whatever it is, however you spell that, but you can add that and he would see that in real time. So it's only a benefit if you can afford a $250 Chromebook and put it next to him. It's only a benefit. Whether or not he needs to use it is its own different thing.
Yeah. And part of our, I guess, issue is we're already pressed for space within our setup. True. So there's not a whole lot of counter space that's really left, to be honest with you, if we tried to set up another monitor or laptop or whatever. So
I've seen UCF, they've done a good job with like basically arms on the side, that kind of art. So that's pretty cool. Also, do you end up doing this sort of a word export for your PA read?
Yeah, I normally use the word export for our pregame messaging. All of our in-game stuff, like I think I kind of touched on it earlier, they're actually PA cards.
That's right.
But on that note, I do take my template at the beginning of the year. Once I get all my elements in and get all my reads and all that, I do use that function to print out everything, basically two to a page, that I can then print out, and then I go cut them and then laminate them into half page sheets. So I kind of use it, as that instead of, taking that and copying it to something different and all that. I kind of use that function within it. So
cool. Yeah, just a real quick demonstrating that out too here. This is, we have a specific export for 2 Word documents, and it's honestly designed for a lot of different use cases, one of which is scripts on a corporate stage, with a corporate presenter, but certainly for PA reads as well too. And it basically just, each element drops, and then you can choose which column, which you would naturally choose the PA read or script column, and you can kind of make that blow up a little bit bigger. I mean, there's more options to that, but I'll hold it off. Well, dang man, we're out of time. Generally speaking, we've got a lot of engagement still. There's still over 100 people on here, so I want to give the good old, you're free to leave for anybody who wants to. We're probably going to stick around for a couple more minutes and actually continue doing Q&A and stuff like that, because I think there's a lot of engagement here. But just a couple of pointers before anyone who does. obviously reach out in the chat if you want to connect directly with Jason or anyone from his team. It's very generous of you, Jason, to offer, and I think it's a great idea. We can actually get you his script. And even better, if you are sitting on your hands and don't have a lot to do right now, ping us in this chat or go to shoflo.tv and we'll get you a free trial set up, a copy of Jason's script, the digital format in your trial, and you can just play around with it all day long. So really easy there. Just go to shoflo.tv and use this little blue chat and have a conversation with us. All right, guys, that's it. Otherwise, if you still have interested in what we're going to be talking about, stick around. Otherwise, we appreciate you joining us today. We do have future webinars. If you're curious about it, they're right here, new webinars. If you go to our website, that'll actually take you to a place. And the biggest one we've got coming up next week is going to be with Kyle with the New Orleans Saints. So that'll be fun too. We're going to keep this going. It's basically every Tuesday and Thursday until you guys stop showing up. It's really not more complicated than that. We want to be helpful in a time when there's not a lot of people or not a lot of things to do. All right. Love y'all. Appreciate it. Jay Serino, let's switch back gears. I had one more thing I wanted to make sure I had hit with you, and that was just your general form. Anyone who's got questions, go ahead and pass them in for us, please. We'd love to be in conversation with you. But the last one I wanted to hit, Jason, with you was, just your general color formatting. What am I looking at here when I'm kind of scrolling up and down and I'm seeing yellow and I'm seeing purple? I think color formatting is one of those things that are like your own expression from yourself. But what are they for you when you're looking at Shoflo?
So the purple there, like the pregame segment 2, that is exactly what it is. It's segments. Those segments are kind of breakouts, different like I said, segments is what I call them. That's in pregame. I label them, segment, the band, the show open, and then obviously as we get into game, it's first quarter, second quarter break, so forth, so on. That's just kind of our like title rows, how I like to break it up. Anything that's the kind of yellow, gold, those are actual video content. Anything that you see that's green is typically associated with live shots.
Got it.
So so that's a good one that you're on right there. This live shot is actually as the team is out warming up and stuff. And if you go over to our notes section, we actually have some overlay stats that we put on from our production team of the prior game. So say obviously this past season, Joe Burrow had unbelievable stats every game. So normally during that segment, we would always catch a live shot of him on the field as he's going through his warm up, and then kind of like a left-hand slab of what he did the week prior, against whatever team it might be. And then, if we kind of did that with offense and defensive guys. So I kind of use those live shots there and then have notes kind of out to the right, based on all of that.
And those notes are basically for you, or are those like for the, do those get on printed out on scripts as well too?
I do print those out because our guys that are in the production control room, so as they're looking, they can kind of refer to, what's in that area too. So, so they know that coming up at that spot to look for players, which they already have, our guy Colin Lee can say, okay, camera 1, get a shot of Burrow, get the font ready, blah, blah, blah.
Cool. So, and just a note, so when he was talking about title rows, the idea there is, I'll just create one. Actually, let me go over the webinar example so I don't blow up Jason's script while we're on here. So as an example, if I was to just randomly add a item row, so this is just kind of what your default row looks like. It's really not that much more special than that. But if you wanted to call this, just to make an extreme example, halftime, we have then the ability to come in and call that convert it to a title row. And so then from there, what that does is it does a lot of things, one of which is you can kind of really make it look, pretty and stand it out, create kind of like this visual separation from above. That's by default. That's before you come in and actually, do what he's been doing, which is kind of like give it a particular or font color or whatever you might want to have done in that scenario. And then the last one is, which is a cool benefit that we do now, which is when you're jumping, when you're in your script, you might want to like quickly get to different sections. And so now we have, if you hold down Option and you hit Command up or down, it's actually going to jump to the next title row. So that's a good one, guys, for anyone who's been using Shoflo for a while. Pro tip there: jump from title row to title row, literally by hitting Option and then up and down arrow. Another one is Shift Command Option will take you to the last row. So Shift Option down arrow will take you to the last row, and Shift Option arrow up will take you to the first row. So just a good reason to continue trying to invest your workflow around title rows as you go. Have you been using that at all, Jason? Have you tried that one yet?
I have not actually. I'm gonna have to start using that. So
there you go, man. Everybody learned something. Okay, cool. Well, I think that in general, the questions have kind of slow. Oh, wait, I got one more for you. Can you talk through how you built your TOs pre-show, your timeouts, sorry, pre-show, and how you go about moving things in real time? That's a great question. So yeah, mostly the question there is in game, you build out your timeouts, or sorry, before the game, you build your stuff out in timeouts and what's kind of your approach. But then in game, how are you adapting in real time?
Sure. So in my template, if you go down a little farther, I guess, I think I'm already in the template. So I go in, I know within the SEC, we have different timeout formats based on the network carrying, and then also the different networks have different formats within the time slot that the game is at. So like ESPN, for instance, has 3 different formats. There's a reduced, a normal, and then an expanded. Reduced is obviously like the 11 o'clock game. Their normal ones, their normal kind of one, and then the primetime game is usually the expanded one. Yeah. So what that does mean is that these over here, these timeouts, you'll see timeout 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah. Those length of the timeouts differ game by game, network to network, CBS versus ESPN. And then also the amount of timeouts. So like CBS basically has 4 timeouts every quarter. ESPN has 3 timeouts in the first quarter, third quarter, 4 timeouts in the second quarter, fourth quarter. So obviously in this, if this was so I put all 4 timeouts in here. If we're on ESPN for a particular game, I remove the 4th timeout, so forth and so on. So now, like when I set up my timeouts here, again, I don't really script stuff. So I don't particularly I try to stay away from saying, okay, the first timeout, we're going to do this. I'm not rigid on that. It all depends on what's going on. The last thing I want to do is, if we go down, score a touchdown, crowds all into it, so forth and so on. I don't want to have to run out, somebody that we're, recognizing for an academic achievement or, somebody like that. That's not necessarily going to keep the crowd in it. Now, I do say that, and at times that does happen for various reasons. If it's a very important donor one or something like that, that's been requested to us from senior administration or from, I guess university admin. I do those and slot those that, like, if it's the first time out, no matter what, we're doing this. And I usually go ahead and communicate that with our band and our cheer and all that. We usually know that by Friday. So in that production meeting, I'm telling them, this is going to happen no matter what. Now, there are other times that stuff gets inserted in. For instance, Shaq normally comes to a couple of football games a year, or 1 or 2 football games. And when he does, we get him down on the field. And in those instances, I might bring him out after a touchdown because I know the crowd's going to go crazy and it's going to keep up the energy inside the stadium. So, some of that stuff's done on the fly as we know about it. Sometimes we can plan on it. Sometimes we know Shaq's coming. Other times it's like a text that morning or that afternoon. Hey, Shaq's going to be at the game, today, and we kind of coordinate, all right, like bring them down in the first quarter or the second quarter, so forth, so on.
That's awesome.
So like in game, if I'm shuffling stuff around, so in saying that, so in first quarter, let's just say because of the way the game ends up flowing or anything like that, all four of our media timeouts come after touchdowns, right? So I'm letting the band do their thing and letting, cheer do their thing, and then doing all those kind of elements to keep the crowd in it. And I don't ever get a chance to go down and read any of these other PAs. So then quite honestly, I click on it and move them. As I get to the second quarter, I click on it and move them into the second quarter. So I have like a running list of what I need to get in, try to get in that quarter.
So real quick on that. So then, Jason, you're basically saying if you don't get to a PA read like the Planet Fitness one right here,
yeah,
you would just use like the up or down arrows, or you'd bump it
control arrow. Yeah, I would just move it down into the second quarter. So I have it on my list that I still need to get that element in. And kind of on the flip side of that, we also do kind of the exact opposite of that. In that, say like we get a game that it's a tight game, for instance, and we're getting a whole bunch of punts, right? So our band is 350 plus members.
Yeah.
So 350 plus members take a lot of time to get ready, set to play. So like if we get a timeout after a punt or something like that, where it's not necessarily exciting, we've just punted the ball to give back to the defense, and we get a media timeout, I might read a quick PA or two while they're getting set and up to play before they start playing. And then I'll pick up on the back end with either music or like if I have a defensive video prompt or something like that to kind of get the, crowd back into it before the play starts. So with that being said, if I get through all of my stuff in the first quarter, I might go to the second quarter and bump something up to the first quarter. Like I just keep moving stuff constantly. So
you're more dynamic. You're kind of like, hey, this is the plan, but I'm very willing to change it, and
exactly.
And you kind of just keep pushing stuff further,
either further up or further back, or whatever. One of my main goals that I always try to do is get done with any sponsored obligation that we have, get done with that as early in the fourth quarter as we can. Because the last thing I want to do is if it gets late in the fourth quarter and it's a tight ball game or something like that, and we get a quick timeout, like a hot timeout, I don't want to have to be forced to read a PA or something like that. I want to be able to throw that to my band or play music or a video prompt or anything along those lines that's going to engage and help our team throughout that stretch of the game, So
that's, I'm curious on that, like with your responsibility with these purples, these sponsorships, are you padding the game with additional sponsorships, or are you like, this is the total amount I have to run? One of my goals is to get through all the purples, like you said, certainly by the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Like this is basically all of our slots,
Right.
Like essentially we don't typically try to add more. Now with that being said, if there's a corporate sponsor that comes around and wants to throw six figures at you or something like that, we're going to make room for something. So but
gonna make room for something. Sponsor the touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, like these are pretty much our slots, and some of these are based on what happened. Like if you see this Rouse's Market Drive Summary, I have one of those in each quarter, but that's literally only if we score a touchdown. If we don't score a touchdown that quarter, we just don't do it. And I don't necessarily move that down because I don't have to get a certain amount of those in. That's just after every touchdown. But I just like to be able to show that, okay, we got in this game, we had a touchdown every quarter, so we did it at least every quarter. I mean, obviously, we could go back and look at stats and say if we had 7 touchdowns, we did it 7 times. You know,
Right.
but I just kind of have these as placeholders for my personal self of when I'm looking through. It constantly like reminds me if we're down driving the ball and we're on the 10-yard line. Okay, after we score here, we need to do the Rouse's drive summary, and this will be the Planet Fitness touchdown or the X Mark take it to the house promo, which those are literally just kind of live shots or replays with their logos, like a logo graphic next to it.
Gotcha.
So it's not necessarily a read or a thing. It's more of a graphical thing on the video board.
Yeah, it makes sense. Hey, I got a couple other good questions that came out from this conversation. One really simple one: is your band director on headset with you?
Our band director, the director himself, no, but they put one of their GAs on the headset. He kind of, so there's the drum major stands on this big podium.
Yeah.
The GA with the headsets on one side of him. The band director, Kelvin, is on the other side of him. So I can always have the person on with the band if I need to ask Kelvin a question or get with Kelvin, you know, he can relay it. And then also we're constantly talking to that guy. Say, okay, here's a punt. Looks like we're going to get a media timeout. We're going to do this one sponsored read and then throw the band. And then he knows that, okay, they're going to do one sponsored read, throw the band. We can talk to him if we need the band to cut, and he can kind of get the attention of the drum major to cut. Sometimes most of the time they're pretty good about it. Normally at the beginning of each season, we have kind of a break-in period, if you will, I guess, depending on, I guess, if there's a new drum major or, you know, or like new, you know, GAs on the headset. We typically try to sit down with the band during the summer, normally in July, and then once in July, and then again in August, a couple of weeks before the season, and we get to meet all of their new staff. They get to know us because not only, you know, for football, but in terms of, you know, volleyball games and basketball games and gymnastics. That way kind of everybody knows their faces and all that kind of fun stuff. And cool. And then we kind of go over that somewhat, you know, I guess with them there, you know, hey, okay, here's our protocols we use. Here's the SEC guidelines of when we can play, when we can't play, you know, so forth and so on.
Are you sharing with him the guest pass or no?
Yes. Okay, cool. Yes. Nice. Yeah. Like they do have the guest pass where they can, you know, I guess refer back to it at any point, you know, and well, they more
so there. Just see what's coming for the weekend to see if there's anything substantially different, things like that. Yeah. Another question that came in was from Lonnie. Do you have issues with sponsors and media rights holders if you move their element during the game? She says some of her sponsors at Wyoming seem married to certain timeouts.
Yeah, not particularly. Our guys are pretty flexible. Now there are a couple that I try to split. So we have like essentially 2 restaurants that it is what it is, but they essentially do the same thing. One's called Dance for Your Dinner. The other one's called Candiac Maniac, but it's basically people dancing and stuff like that. And we pick winners, so forth and so on. So I always try to split those and do one in the first half and one in the second half. Typically I try to do second quarter and third quarter. But those are about the only 2 that I kind of try to split by half. Everything else can pretty much be shuffled. We're not necessarily locked into a particular time. About the only other one that we're, we do have a couple of halftime things that are geared towards halftime. We have a halftime sponsor that has a read right at the beginning of halftime, and then one at the end that's tied into giving away a gift card to a lucky seat. And then we do a specific one with a local children's hospital during the second quarter break, where there's a kid that's recognized for, I guess, overcoming whatever adversity, illness, injury, whatever. We kind of feature his story, and then he is down on the field with our cheer squad helping kind of lead a Go Tigers cheer with the stadium. So we kind of recognize them and then throw it down to a live shot of them down with the cheerleaders. They're normally holding one of the signs, and then we get a Go Tigers chant.
Nice.
So I guess those are about the only, well, I guess let me back up. There is a halftime highlight sponsor as well. So 3 that were locked in to particular times, but those are kind of natural, tie-in, locked in times that you have every
they're
game.
almost programmed for that period of time.
But like everything else, it's pretty much fluid. It can change whenever. So
that's pretty cool. Do you find that do you know of any sponsors that you're sending that are interested in seeing the game script ahead of time, or are they kind of just
we haven't come across that yet.
Okay.
Because I don't know if they know we have the ability to do that.
Right.
I could probably think of a few.
Would you even want to give them the ability?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can think of a few that are pretty. I don't know what the right word is, but they would be the ones that would probably want to see it.
I think I can think of your
word. They're pretty demanding. Yeah. But at this time we haven't gone down that route. That's not to say at sometime like in the future it might happen, but we haven't opened that up quite yet. So
cool. Hey man, I think just in the rap zone, even though it's great, we've still got like over 50 people or 40-ish people on, but talk to me about just kind of like where you're going for inspiration. What's the what teams or leaders in the industry are you guys kind of going, hey, I like what they're doing over there. I'm looking at that. I'm trying to figure out how to apply that maybe into LSU's kind of workflow.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily know if I have any specific, teams or this or that I, kind of pinpoint. I try to follow as many team accounts and as many, personal people on Twitter and such to see what's going on there. As a staff, I guess over the last couple of years, we have tried to make one road trip like this past year, although I personally wasn't able to go on this one because of prior engagements, but our staff went over to Texas when we played Texas.
Cool.
The year prior to that, we went to Auburn. I don't know what or if we'll try to go somewhere this year. It probably depends on what happens with, travel. Like right now, LSU's under a travel ban. So, but it depends on how all that shapes out. But, hopefully there's some kind of opportunity there. Excuse me. And that's a normal cough that I have, so don't worry about me. So
I wasn't even thinking it, but geez.
Yeah. I do try to, for like the NACMAs and so forth and so on, when it makes sense. If we go to NACMA, we'll normally try to take an afternoon or a night. And if there is, most of the time there's a professional team or something like, albeit it's probably baseball in the summer, that's somewhere close. We'll go over there for a night and kind of take in what they do, down in Orlando. One of our former GAs works for the Rays.
Oh, cool.
And we've gone down there, A, to visit with her, and then B, to kind of take in what they've done. And actually, we kind of stole one of their ideas and made it work for what we do at baseball for a certain promotion we do.
Nice.
When I was up in DC for NACMA, we drove over to Baltimore, took in an Orioles game, we looked at what they did around their stadium, so forth, so on. If we get to go to Vegas, I don't know if there'll be anywhere. I don't know if NHL will be. I don't think NHL will be going on around then, but depending on if there's something like that, to take in. A few years ago, we used some connections we had up in New York City and actually went up for 2 or 3 days, visited with the folks with the Knicks and the Rangers, as well as with the Nets. Sat down with them for, like an hour or two, picked their brains on stuff, went to games, back-to-back nights, one in Madison Square Garden and one over at Barclays Center, and kind of, took out some notes of there. We've talked about doing that if we don't end up going to NACMA this summer because of travel bans and all that. If we do, or even what happens with NACMA, who knows what's going to happen at this point. But if that ends up getting canceled out, or we might take that opportunity to try to go somewhere regionally. Like I've thought maybe over to the, Texas Rangers once they start play back because they have a new ballpark, kind of take in what they're doing. And all that. I mean, that's a pretty easy drive from here, Baton Rouge, 5 or 6 hours. So, cool. So those are the kind of things we try to do of take notes from different places, and when it makes sense, maybe we can take those back to our campus, tweak them a little bit for what we do, and kind of make it work for us, and hopefully with just sharing some of this, hopefully there's something that sparks, an idea or something that works back on your campus, your pro team, your event, whatever it might be. Maybe there's something that's in there that, I guess you could take back and kind of make your own.
I think there is, man. I think there's loads in here. So, well, Jason, let's wrap. This was awesome, dude. And it was even extended. And I think that's awesome. So, I think.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate y'all having me. So enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course. Hey, real quick, say your email again one more time for people.
It is Suitt, Suitt, just my last name, LSU.edu. And of course, I guess you could always go to our staff, directory at lsusports.net, and you can get it all there too. Feel free to shoot me a note if you have any other questions, or need anything else, or, they want to see a different scripts or, whatever. Obviously all of us have quite a bit of time right now, kind of at home. So I'm fairly open to anything. So,
yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Jason, taking the time and being with us and with our, with the people who are love Shoflo and are wanting to learn more about it. So thanks, dude. And best of luck and prayers and thoughts for your family in just Louisiana. You guys are in a hot spot right now. So.
Same to you. Same to everybody out there who's jumped on here. Y'all stay safe, stay healthy, listen to government, make it through this and then get back to sports.
And then sports will come back and we'll all get our lives back. So
that's right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate everybody. And we're going to call this a wrap.
Bye. All right, guys. Take care.